Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle where I talk about electronic music, both new and old, and today, it's time for another top 10 list. Alright, we are finally bringing this far too long discography review to an end. Squarepusher, as you can tell by the fact that I've basically dedicated the past 2.5 months to his music, is a man who has meant a lot to me over the years, and is just straight one of my favorite artists in electronic music. His combination of jazz with electronic in so many different and interesting ways, his continual effort to reinvent himself and stay ahead of the curve, and make all of his albums their own unique experiences separate from each other, and, of course, this particular selection of tracks that I feel to be my favorites that he's ever done. This list actually did fall in place relatively easily for me. Maybe there are a lot of obvious choices in here, but I'm feeling pretty good about what I've put into this list and the order it comes in, so yeah. Disclaimers. Of course, it's all just opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it. Squarepusher is one of those kinds of artists that has lots of different appeals, and depending on what you enjoy the most in his music, your list is likely to be very different from mine. But this only reflects my own personal enjoyment and nostalgia, just tracks which mean the most to me personally. And it doesn't necessarily reflect how I'll feel until the end of time. It's always subject to change, and might not reflect how I feel in a year from now. Though I kinda doubt this particular one is going to change all that much, but whatever. So without any further ado, let's get right into the top 10 best Squarepusher songs. Number 10. Don't Go Plastic from Music is Rotted One Note. This is the track most likely to change spots at some point. There was a ton of competition for this spot after all. I mean, spoilers, there are 20 honorable mentions in this video, more than any of my other top 10 lists to date so far. That happens with a back catalog this long and detailed. But I wanted to give at least one spot to something from Music Has Rotted One Note, which is one of my favorite albums from the guy in general, and I think if I absolutely had to pick a favorite from that album, it'd probably have to be this one. Don't Go Plastic is such a weird track. It's very jazzy and abstract, the melodies are very unconventional and paranoid. It's got like 3 or 4 different hooks, if you even want to call it that, over the course of about just 4 minutes. And somehow I've still managed to get this track stuck in my head before. I think it speaks to this track's quality that I can remember basically all of it as well as I can. And I just really do love the paranoid and scattered energy of this track as well. It's an excellent tone setter for Music Has Rotted One Note, even if it is the second track. It's kind of the one that lets you know exactly what you're getting into with that album. Awesome track for sure. Number 9. Store Eyeglasses from Damagin Furies. Okay, this is definitely going to be one of the least obvious and most controversial picks for this list. Or maybe not, because every time in the series so far I've thought something was going to be controversial, it ended up not being that big a deal, but we will have to see. But yes, I do love this track to the point of it being on the main list, and I knew this would be the case even before I started the series. Sure, there are plenty of tracks Squarepusher has, especially on Eufabulum, that are very similar to it. Just look at the buffer music for this video. And arguably tracks like those might be better, since this track kind of borrows one of its main hooks from The Cure's Just Like Heaven, and it came out after all those other similar tracks. But the difference with Store Eyeglasses is personal meaning. I'm not sure why, but Eufabulum really only clicked with me in a strong way recently. I only heard Angel Integer for the first time in preparation for that review. Meanwhile, Store Eyeglasses has been a part of my life since Damagin Furies dropped in 2015. That track alone basically got the album onto my favorites of 2015 as an honorable mention, despite it not being the most original of Squarepusher tracks. I have always loved its sunny and overly happy melodies, the crazy and manic atmosphere it provides. It's just a track that puts me in a great mood, like few other Squarepusher tracks do. Even if it's not on anyone else's list, it most certainly belongs on mine. Number 8. Tundra from Feed Me Weird Things. Okay, now it's time for me to dip into the obvious picks. I don't have a ton to say about Tundra. It's not even aged that gracefully with its kind of cheap production and its really obvious amen breaks all over the place. but I still can't help but wholeheartedly love it. A track like this reminds me why the Amen break has been so abused for so many years, and of course the ghostly chord progressions that give the track a super haunting and enveloping atmosphere that works wonders, and rises above any issues I might have, doing very well as an introduction to the ghostly but enrapturing atmosphere of Vimy Weird Things. Essential track for sure. Number 7. Hello Meow from Hello Everything. This track's percussion tracks also aren't that original, but Hello Meow demonstrates in a visceral way one of the things I most love about Squarepusher's music. That is, whenever he so feels like it, the guy has an incredible ear for catchy hooks. With this maybe being the catchiest track he's ever done, rivaled by only one of the other tracks later on this list, and even one that I'm not sure totally beats this out in catchiness. Not to mention his choice of synth settings and instrumentation make this a really lively and fun track with lots of playful personality that makes this an excellent tone setter to all the melodic awesomeness that Hello Everything delivered in spades. Oh, and there's a pretty awesome bass solo here too, which is nice. Number 6. Squarepusher theme from Vimy Weird Things. The first track from Squarepusher's first album, and not only that, but the one selected to basically be the man's theme song by the title. Whether or not that totally works, I guess is up to you, but I think it's pretty fitting. The fast-paced breaks, lively instrumentation, solos, and various equally effective hooks make for a nicely catchy, emotionally rewarding, and attention-grabbing track that definitely feels like it should be a theme song for something or someone. I don't have a ton else to say about it besides that. It's a pretty dang obvious choice, but it deserves all the love it's gotten. Number 5. My Red Hot Car from Go Plastic. This is the above-mentioned track that rivals Hello Meow in catchiness, though I rank this one higher because it feels like it's got a lot more complexity to it. See, this is a track that exemplifies how awesome a sound editor Squarepusher is as well, on top of the hook. This track wouldn't be quite as special to me without the giant mess of stuttering edits and percussive breaks crashing all over the place. It's just such a fun ride all the way through. The downside is that the lyrics are kinda uncomfortable, but with a hook this good and with this much substance to keep your interest, it well makes up for that minor gripe. One of my most played tracks from the guy, for sure. Number 4. Beep Street from Hard Normal Daddy. I've gone on record to say that Hard Normal Daddy is my favorite Squarepusher album, and there are lots of reasons for that, which I detailed in my review, but the first 2 tracks on that album have just cemented themselves as a part of my life. We'll get to the first one in a bit, but this second track has just stuck with me so much. The atmospheric and chilling melodies here placed over the dense and frantic percussion provide an incredible hook that's also one of the greatest that Jenkinson has ever come up with. Or greatest 2, since there's really 2 hooks in this track. It resonates with me on a level that very few other Squarepusher tracks do. Really only 3 beat it out, so let's get to those. Number 3. Tetra Sync from Ultravisitor. This one definitely surprised me in how high it managed to get, and probably other people as well, since it's not a very popular track or obvious choice. It's not a personal life-defining track like most of my picks for this list. It doesn't have a killer hook or anything. But it is probably the one track from Squarepusher that I am the most impressed by. He's always been impressive in nearly everything he does, but from the hyperspeed live percussion to the incredible bass solo, to its utilization of 9 minutes and 27 seconds, well, more like 9 minutes and 8 seconds, not including him saying hello to the live crowd, but most of all, just the insanely huge and epic and emotionally harrowing atmosphere propped up by the incredible production. This isn't a track where he, shreds or flexes that much. He does a little bit, but Everything about it is incredibly epic and just feels larger than life. The kind of thing where I just have to step back and acknowledge it as like one of the greatest pieces of music ever. If you've missed this one, you ought to go back and examine it more closely. Number 2. Cooper's World from Hard Normal Daddy. Right, bit of an obvious choice, of course, but this has to be this high. This is the track that got me into Squarepusher. I was blown away by it on first listen, the combination of the jazzy cop show soundtrack sound with its fast-paced drum and bass style, and the fact that it was incredibly addicting on top of that. It's also certainly the Squarepusher track I've listened to the most. I was so captivated by its atmosphere and melodies that I kept listening to it over and over and over, and I've basically completely memorized how it goes by now. When I first started this discography review, I knew it was going to be a tough battle between this and my actual number 1 pick for what would top this list. Sometimes it is the top of this list, just the super satisfying instrumentation and addicting melodies haven't lost their charm so many years after the fact. But before we get into that number 1, it's time for the many honorable mentions. UFOs over Leytonstone from Vimy Weird Things. Dark Steering from Eufabulum. The Coat Hanger from Just a Souvenir. My Sound from Music is Riding One Note. Iambic 9 Poetry from Ultravisitor. Plotinus from Hello Everything. Laser Rock from Showbleeder 1 to Demonstrator. Tomorrow World from Selection 16. Angel Integer from Instrobia EP. Hi, Buffer Music. Mutilation Colony from Do You Know Squarepusher? 4001 from Eufabulum. Papillon from Hard Normal Daddy. Tomib Help Bus from Ultravisitor. Theme from Sprite from Hello Everything. Delta V from Just a Souvenir. A Journey to Redom from Big Loda. Paradise Garage from Numbers Lucent. Sark Acid Part 1 from Burning in the Tree. Wind Scale 2 from Vimy Weird Things. Star Time 2 from Just a Souvenir. Right, that, as I said, is the most honorable mentions I've ever put into one of my top 10 lists so far, so I think that would be a good place to stop. So, let's finally get into number 1. Iambic 5 Poetry from Budokan Mindphone. Yep, big surprise, right? Really the only thing that might have taken away from the power of this track is the fact that it's been tasked with being the tone setter for the Budokan Mindphone mini album, and the rest of that release doesn't really live up to that or even try. In fact, there aren't any tracks that Squarepusher has ever made that is quite like Iambic 5 Poetry, but I gotta go with this one as my number one pick, just because this is easily the track of his that has resonated with me the most on an emotional level. The simple melodies on the bells, or whatever instrumentation that is, the addicting hook, the warm chord progressions, and every element in this track make for such a comforting and harrowing experience. And yes, I would also specifically rank this original version over the live version from Electrack. Sure, this may not fit as well on its release, but the sound of everything has grown on me and cemented itself too much into my life. It's not just my favorite Squarepusher track of all, it's one of my favorite tracks of all time, period. Maybe in my top 10 or something. Don't actually ask me to make that list, by the way. I don't think I could actually pull that off. But whatever, needless to say, I have nothing but gushing for Iambic 5 Poetry, and it felt like the most fitting choice for the number one spot on this list. And that's it. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. As for the next discography review, wonder what that's gonna be. Alright, and gotta get that one out for my own mental health. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time. Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky... I forgot to close the windows.